Hello, hello, hello. Oh, I don't think I'm quite live yet. All right. Hello, hello, hello. Oh, I guess I was live. My bad. Thank y'all for joining Inspire Teach E or Love LITE Firestarters podcast. So we've been going strong since April of this year, and the whole point behind the LITE Firestarters, the blog, that was really a space to share about different experiences in relationships, whether it's family, work, romantic, whatever. And then also a little bit on spirituality. But for the month of December, we've been focusing on finances and doing a special feature. So if you watched last to see Nurse Drew again, just talking about, I feel like my signal's not as strong, and the weird thing is I know that my Wi-Fi is good. So I hope y'all can hear me. Let me just do a little check on my phone. And Drew has joined us, so I'm going to add him to the stream shortly. But I just wanted to let you guys know, this is a special feature, and part of the reason why we've been doing it is because it's the holiday season. It's usually a time of year where everyone's in a great mood. You want to go all out, but I think we're all in a place where I still look frozen. Looks frozen too. Technical difficulties. Bear with me, y'all. Good thing I can edit this later. They finally allowed for that. Okay. All right, good. So I can't technically see what's going on, but you guys can. So let me just keep it rolling. For the holiday season, we wanted to do something that was in the spirit, but also, like, let's face it, the world has changed. It's been changing. Companies doing restructures, and it's normal for this time of year, but it just feels a little different. Really excited that because it gives you an alternative. It gives you a way to prepare yourself for the future, jump into something, and some great he clipped that we're on, or actually I'm not even sure if we're supposed to start with that, but is give us a little leeway and really get excited about this opportunity to get in early. So for those who out last, that was a topic that Drew, who's a frequent guest on the show, has brought prepared and doing a lot of research and investing in himself and doing trial and error. And I asked him to teach me a little bit more about it so I could get my comfort level up. And a month ago, where we really started was, what is money? What is the history of money? How has it evolved over time? What does it look like now? What makes it unique? And he covered all that, and it just wasn't really enough to get into why Bitcoin is so relevant now. And last week we talked about how not only is Bitcoin unique and has really set itself apart, but a big component of that has to do with the fact that it's a type of technology. So try to go in depth into a lot of it, but I'm excited because, as he told you last week, he's going to touch on why Bitcoin is the solution and how that relates to inflation. So as far as, the direction we're going, we're building on this and wanting to make sure that you guys see the value in it. We want to make sure that you learn something new and get it from someone who's in a position that's similar to yours, that wants to see other people grow, that's in a field that's completely dedicated to that. And like, for us, there's no ulterior motive, no extra incentive. Like, there's no groups or anything that we're affiliated with or involved with. So don't take it as like this official financial advice, but it is advice that we're sharing with you because we see so much value in it. So long-winded intro today, sorry. I'm gonna go ahead and add Drew, see if there's anything more he wants to add, and make sure you guys know that maybe I forgot, because I don't know, today's just starts a little different for me. Drew, can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome. So what did I miss in your intro? I feel like I usually tell them a lot more, probably more about like our history and knowing each other, but I don't think that's as relevant. I think you've really been building on your knowledge base and really giving us a lot of great facts and insight and relevant tools that we can use. I still haven't got you added. I might have to it's weird. I
So
might
if you
have
could,
to
I can
do
hear
it
you, but your
through
screen is
the other
frozen.
phone. Oh, there you are. Okay, good. You're added. Wait, you were added, then you're not added. I don't know what's going on. There you are. I think you're in. Can you see yourself right now? Okay. I think you're back now.
I can hear you, but there's a bad kind of echo in the background.
Should take care of it. Are you still hearing that echo?
No, it's off now. But your screen keeps freezing.
Oh, okay. Video, or if you want to just let me know when to play it.
Say that again. Can you hear me?
Oh my goodness. Now I can hear you. I wasn't hearing anything for a second.
Got it. You can hear me now?
I don't normally have this many technical difficulties. Like, I'm in shock.
Okay.
Normally,
Yeah, I can't hear you
I
talking.
think it's on you, and I can hear you now.
You can hear me? Can you hear me?
I think taking my camera off. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, the sound was going in and out, but should I just go ahead and start and get rolling? Mika, can you hear me?
Drew, are you good?
Yeah, you can hear me now? Hello?
Yep, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I think there's a delay, possibly, but no, there's a bad echo.
Is this better?
Yes, much better.
All right, cool. I've got to switch to the phone. The laptop's not working for whatever reason. But I'm hoping that means I'll still be able to share the video. All right. So, sorry about all that technical difficulty, kind of lost our steam here. But that goes to show the importance of technology in our lives.
Right. That's right. There's a interesting story when the pandemic first hit. They were one of the CEOs of one of the tech companies, MicroStrategy. They were talking about how they had to go through 3 different streaming platforms before they came across Zoom. When the pandemic hit, a lot of people hadn't prepared for like video conferencing and all that stuff, and so when that happened, they went through 3 different platforms in a matter of a day, because platform number 1 would freeze and pause. Platform number 2, the audio was distorted. And so they finally came across platform number 3, and they were like, we don't know much about it, but we heard about Zoom. And the CEO was like, fire it up. And so he said that's when his whole kind of philosophy changed, because initially it was like, no, all of our meetings have to be in person and this and that. And I think that was a lot of people's feel and a lot of companies. But when the pandemic hit, it just made everybody realize, some of the stuff that we're doing and we require to be in person, we can actually accomplish virtually or, via Zoom. So anyway, that's just a quick story. But wanted to jump right in, pick back up where we left off last week. I know that we closed out with the interesting thing of the 2 institutions that were created together in the same year. And one was the Federal Reserve and one was the IRS. And just to simplify the 2 institutions, one institution generates money, being the Federal Reserve. It puts some currency into circulation, and then the other institution takes money out of circulation. That's the IRS, and they do that through taxes. And so it's just kind of coincidental that those 2 levers were created simultaneously. A system that gives you money and a system that takes it back. So we touched on inflation in the past, and just before we jump into it, I don't want to go too deep. I was a little more mindful of the message we wanted to get out to the audience. So I'm going to try to keep things as light as possible, as if we were talking, just trying to educate a younger adult or our children or anybody in our families. I just want to kind of simplify things. And so one of the places where I want to start is just, some key takeaways for tonight. Number one is time is more valuable than anything else. And the reason I say that is because in order to understand anything, you have to have the amount of time to put in the study to get to understand it. I think the big reason why people are not so in tune with Bitcoin is because, to be honest with you, people just don't have the time to study and the time to dedicate, to learn how Bitcoin works and the financial systems, because a lot of people are working 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week just to make ends meet. And so a lot of people just don't have the time to invest into learning, certain things. And so with this platform, we can hopefully decrease the amount of time that they have to spend learning some of these things and expedite the learning curve to help bring them up to speed quicker. And so just a takeaway for anybody is time is more valuable than anything else. And you have to learn how to guard your time. And the way you guard your time is be selective on what you spend your time on and be selective on with who you spend your time with. Because a good friend of mine, we were talking about it not too long ago, and we were just kind of analyzing how much time we really have as human beings on this planet. And when you think about it, you don't think that initially before I thought about it, I thought, oh, we're alive for hundreds of thousands of days or whatever. But then when you really do the math, when you do like 365 days, multiplied by 90, like if you're a 90-year-old person, I mean, we're on this planet for like 32,000 days, or less. And when you really kind of put that into perspective, 32,000 is not a lot of time. And so you have to be selective on how you spend your time. So that's takeaway number one. Takeaway number two, if we were talking to a younger adult or anybody, is learn how to solve for X, meaning learn how to ask the right questions. Don't be afraid to ask, questions. Learn how to solve for X. And I'll give you two quick examples of that. One, I'll use kind of a healthcare analogy, and the other one we'll jump into Bitcoin. And so when it comes to solving for X, you want to do that. Ask yourself, how do you solve a problem? And I do this a lot of time in job interviews. When I'm interviewing a candidate, I'll ask them, how do you solve a problem? And there's no right or wrong answer, but what I'm really looking for is their thought process. How do they solve for X? And so do they solve or problem solve in chronological order, right? And so like when I worked in urology and I used to, take patient history and physicals, I would, solve for X. So basically somebody would come into the clinic and I would ask, so what brought you out today? And they'd be like, oh, I went to the hospital and they referred me over here. Well, there's a lot of information to capture in between there. And so, you have to start at the beginning when it comes to chronological order. So I would ask them, well, what happened? Well, I was mowing the lawn. And then what happened? I got back pain. And then what did you do next? My wife called, 911. And then what happened? I went to the hospital and they did some tests and they diagnosed me with a kidney stone. And then what happened? And then they referred me, to your clinic or office. And that's why I'm here. So you get the patient to tell a story. So you have to learn how to solve for X. And so I think you can apply that to anything in life, learning how to solve for X and asking the right questions and learning how to problem solve in chronological order. And so you can apply that to Bitcoin, right? And the state of where we are today. And we talked about in the previous podcast, what's the problem? The problem is inflation. Well, okay, how did we get here? Like how did all of this come about? And so you have to go down that rabbit hole and you have to really understand, let's start with, what is inflation? Inflation is just a hidden tax. Okay. All right. Well, if it's hidden, what does that really mean? It means that you're losing money somehow, some way, right? Money's being taken away from you. So hidden tax some people call it theft, if you really break it down. But inflation is a hidden tax, and a hidden tax is theft, right? And so that's one way to kind of analyze it. And it's like, all right, well, how did we get here? And we got here because our currency used to be pegged to a hard asset. That hard asset was gold. So basically, what it meant is if we had X amount of gold in reserve, we should only be allowed to print X amount of currency to reflect the amount of gold we have on hand. But then bankers got greedy and they started what they call fractional reserve lending. And so fractional reserve lending is basically when you deposit your money into a bank, right? What a lot of people don't understand is that's no longer your money, it's the bank's money. And so the bank is going to make loans
Do we
based
not
off.
understand that? I feel like every time I get feed for something, like they remind me, I'm like, how did my money become yours to like just
That's right. And so, if you ever look on any bank's door, they have that sign that says FDIC approved, and they'll insure you up to X amount of dollars. And so most banks insure you up to $250,000. So if you have $1 million in the bank and it disappears, they'll reimburse you up to 250,000, but the rest you are SOL, unfortunately.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's just something to be aware of. The money in your bank is not your money, unfortunately. And so Bitcoin gives us the opportunity to have self-custody of our money and currency. But back to the problem, we said that inflation was the problem, and our currency used to be pegged to a hard asset, and that hard asset was gold. And we said in previous podcasts, gold has been the best store of value for the last 5,000 years. And so where the problem started to surface is when the US dollar was taken off the gold standard and put onto a fiat currency system. And the reason they had to do that is because of the Vietnam War. It would be very difficult to explain to citizens, we have to raise your taxes to fund a war that you don't support. So another way to get more money for, to finance your war is to print more money. Well, you can print unlimited money when your currency is on a fiat currency system, which means it's no longer backed by a hard asset. And so every country in the world is on a fiat currency system. So no country has a currency that's pegged to a hard asset. And the US dollar is the world reserve currency, which means whenever we print money, we dilute our currency. But since we're the world reserve currency, we also dilute every other country's currency, unfortunately. And so the problem is inflation, and certain countries are going through what they call hyperinflation. And hyperinflation is when your currency collapses. And so in the previous podcast, we talked about Zimbabwe and Venezuela, and a lot of people can go and look up, Twitter's a good place to start, and, Google, and just look at, YouTube, what's happening in Zimbabwe and what's happening in Venezuela. Their currency, it's not worth anything, right? People are walking around with $1 million notes or bills, or $1 trillion notes or bills, but you can't even buy a loaf of bread with that currency. So the more money we print into thin air, right, or out of thin air, right, we dilute our purchase power. And that's another takeaway that I would want any young individual to understand is it's not about money, it's about purchase power. That's what it's really about. And so, for example, if you had a gold coin, right, in 1945 and it was worth $35, right? That one gold coin was worth $35. You could buy a few things with that. Today, that one gold coin is approximately $1,700. So you can buy a lot more things with that same gold coin. The gold coin didn't change. What changed is the gold coin's purchase power. Well, how did that change? It changed because anytime we put more money into circulation, anything that's scarce, such as gold, will go up in value, meaning it takes more watered down dollars or diluted currency to pay for the same thing. Nobody wants to own green papers of money, right? Nobody wants to own gold coins. What we want is what those paper money or gold coins can do for us. And basically, what we want is purchase power. So let's flip over to Bitcoin. 10 years ago, one Bitcoin was worth a nickel. Today, one Bitcoin is worth roughly $17,000. So did Bitcoin change over time? No. Bitcoin is still Bitcoin as it was 10 years ago. What's changed is the purchase power. And so a big takeaway for people to remember is that things are becoming less expensive in Bitcoin as time goes on. Things are becoming more expensive in fiat currency or paper money over time. So, for example, one Bitcoin was worth a nickel 10 years ago. Today it's worth $17,000. 100,000, or let's take $1 million 10 years ago versus $1 million today. Do you think you can buy more with that $1 million today, or do you think you could buy more with that $1 million 10 years ago? The answer is clearly you can buy more with that $1 million 10 years ago because we've put more money into circulation. Therefore, we've lost purchase power. So a big takeaway for any young individual to understand is what you want is purchase power, right? Regardless of what form that comes in, whether it's a gold coin, whether it's a Bitcoin, whether it's fiat currency, what you want is purchase power. And so when the dollar went off the gold standard and on to the fiat currency system, we started to lose more purchase power. And that's the reason why they're rioting in other countries right now. See, in the US, we were rioting for things like Black Lives Matter and things like that. In other countries, they're rioting too, but they're rioting because their currency is collapsing. A lot of people can't feed their families. And it would be very arrogant of us to assume that that can't happen in the US. It may eventually happen in the US. The only thing is we're the world reserve currency. So if that were to happen, we would be the last country, kind of the last man standing to feel that impact. But it would be very naive of us to assume that can't happen here in the States. If it can happen in another country, it can certainly happen here in the States. And so understand that people are protesting in other countries because their currency is collapsing. And so how do you avoid that, or what's the safety net to that? And that's Bitcoin. So the more money they put into circulation, the value of Bitcoin will go up, right? Because again, Bitcoin has a fixed amount. There's 21 million. There will never be more created. It's a fixed commodity, right? This is the first time in history we have a fixed commodity. And some examples of commodity are oil, wheat, corn, and again, we discussed this in the previous podcast. A commodity is an asset with no issuer or no CEO. A security is an asset with a issuer or CEO. So that's a big difference, meaning a commodity is something that has no CEO. Therefore, it can't be manipulated, such as a stock, right? Stocks are securities. And so a security can be manipulated, or a security can be impacted for different reasons. And so the big takeaway from that is you just want to be able to park your money in a commodity, and you want to park your money in a commodity that's scarce, and you want to park your money in something that's going to hold its value over time. And we talked about it before. What's the best form of property to own that's going to last the longest? It's digital property. Physical property has its defects. Digital property gives you all the benefits of physical property minus the defects. And
So
so,
I'm curious, are you going to circle back to that where the other countries that are rioting right now because they don't have that purchasing power and there is a solution to that? I'm just curious if you're going to circle back to the whether or not those countries are looking to Bitcoin and the influence of Bitcoin on that. Is that
sure. Yep.
coming down the line?
So one country has already made the transition. El Salvador has made Bitcoin a legal tender, right? And so that's huge. And so you'll see other countries start to go through adopting Bitcoin as legal tender. And so, you know, it's not, Bitcoin's not as important if you're here in the States. You kind of look at it as more of an investment. If you're in another country, you look at it as a safety net to protect your family value or assets, because you know your currency is on fire because of inflation. And so they're just hardworking people are just looking to park their money somewhere where it's not going to lose its value. And so Bitcoin has been a lifeline for people in other countries. It's more so as an investment here in the States, but if we lived in a different country, I think we would look at that much differently.
I think that's huge, though. Honestly, like I was really intrigued when you were talking about that because, you know, like you said, it could happen to us, but we really lean into this safety net idea of we're being among the last of that happening to. But if in reality it's happening elsewhere, and this
Yeah.
is a solution that leaders in countries we know are using, like this is a viable option that we need to take more seriously. And I think I wanted to ask that just because I'm like, all right, there's a solution who jumped on it. And I don't know how much you know about like those people getting that security, but has that enhanced the growth or accelerated the growth of Bitcoin as well, since you know it was a solution for El Salvador specifically, and it sounds like maybe other countries are looking to it as well?
Yeah, so El Salvador adopted it, and Bitcoin is going through mass adoption. It's growing faster than the adoption of the internet. And the reason that's happening is because technology, because of Twitter and Facebook and, you know, all these social media platforms to spread a message 10 times faster than previous, you know, years and things like that. So Bitcoin is going through mass adoption, and it's accelerating quicker than the adoption of the internet. So, you know,
and does that kind of tie into where I know I took you off of it being a digital asset, and that's what makes it more valuable as property. But I mean, this mass adoption of it feels like they're all interrelated. So
yeah, right, they are, and that ties into the you know properties of a store of value. The main properties. One is it has to be recognizable, right? And that's what Bitcoin is going through, mass adoption. It's becoming more recognizable globally, you know, and so you know. It has, again, the same properties of gold minus the defects, and that's why it's going to become, that's why a lot of people are looking at it as digital gold. Everybody knows what gold is. Everybody's learning what Bitcoin is. Gold is
that's why
durable,
I'm here.
right? Exactly. Gold is durable. It'll last for a very long time. But what's more durable than gold is um, a digital property. Digital property will last forever. The other thing that you have to look at is it portable? How can it move from point A to point B? And that's where Bitcoin outshines gold. You can move it a lot easier than gold. They both are scarce. Gold is produced at 2% every year on average. Bitcoin has a cap, a fixed amount. Only so much will ever be produced, regardless of the value of Bitcoin. It could be $1 million, it could be $5 million, it could be $10 million per Bitcoin, regardless of its value, regardless of the demand. If someone said, I'll give you $100 million for your Bitcoin, no more can be ever produced, right? If someone said, I'll give you $100 million for your ounce of gold, we're going to quit our jobs today and we'll all be digging up our backyards and our grandparents' backyards and everybody trying to find an ounce of gold, right? So, I mean,
if it was that easy, man.
Yeah, we would all, figure out a way. Us as human beings, we would be, melting down our gold rings and watches and necklaces and everything else to produce an ounce of gold. We will figure out a way as human beings to produce more of that thing to gain value. That doesn't work with Bitcoin. Regardless of the demand, the supply of Bitcoin will never change. And that's the first time that's ever been the case in human history. There's a cap on the commodity, right? So if oil is a commodity, we figure out how to produce more oil. We dig in the ground, we do fracking. There's different ways to produce more oil. More wheat, more whatever the case may be. We'll figure out a way to produce more of that commodity. But we can't do that with Bitcoin. And that's the unique thing about it. So it's very scarce. It's the most scarce asset because it has a cap on it. But it's also divisible. So for every one Bitcoin, it's divisible by 8 decimals, so 100 million Satoshis. So for an example, think of a Satoshi as like a penny or a dollar or whatever the case may be. So in the future, you may be able to go to McDonald's and get you a hamburger for 2 Satoshis, for example. I don't know if that'll...
Satoshi is a form of Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, the Satoshi is just a fraction of a Bitcoin.
Okay.
Just like if you had $100 bill, a penny would be a fraction of that $100 bill.
Throwing out terms you didn't explain yet. I was like,
yeah. Sorry, I forgot about that. So the name Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin, that's where the term Satoshi came from, right? So one Bitcoin is worth 100 million, or 100 million Satoshis is worth one or equals one Bitcoin, just like however many pennies would equal $100 bill.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Just want to make sure I'm following along.
Yeah, no. That's a good question. And so the other takeaway for tonight, if we were just having a conversation with a young individual or our family, is learn the money game. And what I mean by that is learn what is money, then learn how money works, and then so for example, a good way to learn about money and finances, there's a board game called Cash Flow. Robert Kiyosaki made this board game, and it's like advanced Monopoly. But it's the greatest game to play with your family because it teaches you how to do a balance sheet. It's an accounting game, but in a fun way, right? It teaches you accounting, but in a very fun way. And so it throws out like real life scenarios. So you pick your profession, and then the goal is to get out of the rat race, right? And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to take your earned income and turn it into portfolio income, and take that portfolio income and turn it into passive income. And that's the money game. So what is earned income? Earned income is what we do every day. We go and we punch a time clock, and we get paid. So earned income is the highest form of taxed income. Okay. And then the next form of income is portfolio income. Well, what is that? Portfolio income is like stocks. Portfolio income is Bitcoin, things like that. So what you want to do is take your earned income and convert it into portfolio income, because you want to make money, but then you want to let the money work for you. And then the third type of income is one that everybody pursues, is passive income. So what is passive income? Passive income is like real estate, right? So if you own a property, you want to make money while you sleep. You want somebody paying you rent on the first of every month. You look at your bank account and you own 10 properties at $1,000 a piece, and now you got $10,000 sitting in your bank account, right? Every month. So that's passive income. And so the money game is take your earned income, turn it into portfolio income, take your portfolio income and turn it into passive income. And so the other thing that you want to be aware of is how taxes work. And so when it comes to Bitcoin, the reason I say never cash out, right? That's a wealthy man's game, right? You don't get rich by selling your assets. You get rich or wealthy by accumulating more. So if we were teaching our kids the money game, one portion of that would be never sell the family gold, right? Let's say Bitcoin was the family gold. So the lesson would be you never sell the family gold no matter what, right? And the reason you don't want to do that, let's walk through a scenario real quick. Let's say you had $100,000 worth of Bitcoin and I had $100,000 worth of Bitcoin. And this brand new electric Lexus came out and you wanted it and I wanted it. And we both had the finances or the amount of money to do it. So option one, I'm gonna cash out my Bitcoin, right? And remember, Bitcoin is an asset that's growing in value year after year. And it's been doing that since its existence. It's getting more and more valuable. So I'm going to cash in my golden goose egg, right? And right when you cash out on anything, whether it's taxes or, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, you sell a property. So you're going to pay what they call capital gains tax, right? So right when you cash out, Uncle Sam's waiting for their cut. Let's call it 40 or 50%. Let's say 50% for clean numbers. So
it's more accurate. That's about 50%.
Yep. So I cash in my $100,000 of Bitcoin. Now Uncle Sam says, "Thank you, Drew. I'll take half of that." Now I'm left with $50,000. Now I have enough money and I can go buy my Lexus, right? But now I don't have any more Bitcoin, and now I haven't not an asset. I have something that's depreciating in value, right? Because a car, the second you drive it off the lot, it depreciates. So there's no incentive to put a lot of money into something that depreciates. Hint, everybody, don't buy something expensive that depreciates in value. That's just my advice. But anyway, so you say, you know what? I want that Lexus too, but I'm going to do it differently. I'm not going to cash out because I don't want to pay capital gains tax. I want to keep my Bitcoin because I know it's going to be more valuable 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to borrow against my asset. So that's the cool thing about Bitcoin is you can take a loan against it, right? And so you take a loan against your Bitcoin for $50,000. You do your due diligence and you pay your $50,000 loan off in 5 years, 6 years, whatever the case may be. And in 6 years, 5 years, guess what? You have your Lexus. And what do you also have? You have your Bitcoin, right? That's accumulated in value. So maybe 5 years prior, it was worth $100,000, but maybe 5 years down the road, it's worth twice that or 3 times that. Who knows? But your strategy sounds like a better idea than mine, right? Why would I cash out and lose my golden goose egg just to get something that depreciates in value? Your strategy is much better. You're going to take a loan against your asset, get what you want, and let that continue to accumulate. And you can continue to do that over and over again. And that's what you can teach your children is to never sell the family gold. If you need something, you take a loan against it. And the reason I keep stressing take a loan against it is if you don't want to pay taxes, never cash out. You don't pay taxes on a loan, right? So take a loan against your asset so you don't have to pay taxes.
That is huge, people. I mean, come on. How many times have people been like, God, I hate paying Uncle Sam. I hate that, the government gets so much of my money. And we just talked about it's 50%, right? Exactly. That's normally you get taxed at. He just told you something huge. Like, I know when you first hear loan, when you're like, oh, that's something I got to pay back. But did you catch the important part? You're avoiding the 50% tax. You're holding on to something that has value. It's something that as a digital asset, you can continue to pass along. It can stay in your family. It's a huge legacy. So let me be the cheerleader here. That's like, oh my God, this is the thing that everyone should know about, yet we're slowly but surely spreading the word. And if you're hearing this now, you're getting that information early on before more people realize this and they put some regulation in, close a loophole or whatever they may do, because it's going to happen. That. And, as Drew talked about the SEC and like the fact that people are adopting it, part of why we really wanted to do this early on is because we're at a great opportunity. So I'm sorry, I had to get excited for that.
Yeah, no, believe me.
Texas, come on.
Yes, when I learned that, I said, "Wow, that is huge," because that's how, think about Jeff Bezos or Steve Jobs. Jeff Bezos didn't become one of the wealthiest men on the planet by selling all his Amazon stock, right? He became wealthy because he kept his Amazon stock, right? And it accumulated in value. So Bitcoin, look at it the same way. You're not going to get wealthy by selling your Bitcoin. You're going to get wealthy by hanging on to your Bitcoin forever and passing it down to your family. And so when people are like, well, it's volatile, right? And the price goes up and down. Volatility is a great thing. Don't look at it as, a bad thing. If you were willing to buy Bitcoin when it was at an all-time high of 70,000, why would you not buy it at 17,000? To me, that's a Black Friday sale, right? You want to get it as cheap as possible, not for the most expensive price. So when it dips and the price goes down, don't be fearful, be greedy. Say, you know what, I want to buy more of this because the price just dropped and I can accumulate more of it. And the only reason you want to take that strategy is if you truly believe in your investment, right? Never put your money into something that you don't believe in, right? But if you truly believe it, and that's why I say, don't take my advice. This is not financial advice. This is just education, and entertainment. Like, do your homework, and once you figure out this is something everybody in the world needs, not very many people in the world understands, right? And this is a great opportunity to accumulate as much as I can before everybody realizes its value, right? That's what makes a good investment. Something that everybody in the world needs, not very many people understand, and it's undervalued at the time, right? I think Bitcoin can go much higher. And just to piggyback off what Mika was saying is, it's huge to understand that you can take a loan against your Bitcoin and avoid paying taxes. Mika, I don't know if you got the link that I sent you, but that would be a perfect segue to play that clip from Mark Moss, because he gives a strategy to how you can literally retire on Bitcoin.
Yeah, I actually just put that link in the comments too. So let me see if I can get it up.
Yeah.
So that we can play the video. And so we are going to do our best, because the way I have to share it is with that other internet connection.
Okay.
So I'm hoping it will. Oh, good. So you can see it.
I can see it.
I'm just hoping I'm not going to get an echo when I do this.
It's all right. Maybe try to go back just a few seconds if you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry. This one is going super slow. So we're there. Right. We're almost there.
But no, if it's in the link, we can put it in the link, and then people can go and watch it. I think it's at about 26 minutes roughly into this video. The whole video is good, but if you just want to get to the meat and potatoes and how to figure out like a retirement strategy on Bitcoin, this is a perfect video to kind of give you that blueprint to do so. And so yeah, when I came across this, I was like, wow, he really just kind of pieced it together in a very simple way to follow.
And you still have the $200,000 in Bitcoin. Let me break this math down for you so you can
So
see
I
exactly
can,
how this works. All right.
is
So,
that
like I
where
said, if
you
we start with
wanted it to be?
$100,000 in Bitcoin,
Okay.
I have all the math here for you. So let's break this down. So let's say, for example, that you have $100,000 worth of Bitcoin in the bank. Now, again, this could be $1,000, it could be $1 million or 10 million. You do the math in your own head. Let's say that it gains at 200%, like Michael Saylor said. Now, he says that well, obviously, we already know that it has gained 200% a year compounded annual for the last decade. He says it continued.
Uh-oh, I think it froze.
Yeah, it froze. That's okay. But it's good, that people can kind of hear him talking about the strategy. And so please, anybody, that comes across this video, it's you can just type in YouTube, either click on the link included here, go to Mark Moss.
And do that for the next decade. But let's not be anywhere near that aggressive. So
Yeah, it's gonna be choppy, so I don't want to keep interrupting Drew if it's not gonna just play out consistently.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. But no, it's a really good resource to keep in the bank. And thank God for iPhones. They just simplify things so much. I have like my catalog on my notes on my phone, and so whenever I'm learning about a topic, I categorize the topic, and then when I come across an article or a video, I just put that note into that log. And so when I really want to dive into learning about something, I have it all kind of cataloged where I can just go down the row and learn about that topic. So that's just a strategy for anybody, any young person needing a little structure in their life. It works well for me and it keeps me organized. So anyway, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of, wrap up with that is, there is a way to accumulate Bitcoin. There is a way to retire off Bitcoin. And so we are very early. There's less than 2% of the world's population that own Bitcoin. So just think about that for a minute. If, less than 2% of the world owns Bitcoin, imagine when we get to 5% or 10% or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50% of the world that has learned about this, scarce commodity and its value. And as the network gets stronger and more people become a part of that system, just think about where it could take its value. And we talked about it previously that institutions are getting ready to pour into acquiring Bitcoin. So there's a wall of institutional money that's coming for Bitcoin because they realize the value. The reason institutions can't invest in it right now is because Bitcoin hasn't gone through all the regulations, right? So again, this is our opportunity to front run Wall Street. We get to make the investments before the institutions do. And that's never happened in history. So again, do your homework, and
Save on taxes.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
honestly, if there's anything that gets you excited tonight about the podcast is there is a loophole to paying taxes on making money.
That's
When
right.
does that ever happen?
Exactly.
So get in early, save on your taxes. That should be the theme for tonight.
Exactly. And just remember, when in doubt, zoom out, meaning don't get caught up in the day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month volatility of Bitcoin. It's going to go up and down. Just when in doubt, zoom out. Ask myself, if I would have bought this 5 years ago when it was $200 per Bitcoin, would I have more or less? Remember, today it's worth 17,000. And then ask yourself, if I would have bought it 10 years ago when it was a nickel, would I have more money or less? The answer is clearly more. It's worth 17,000. So then, ask yourself, if I buy it today, can I assume in 5 years, are more people going to know about it? Will it be more valuable or less? The answer is likely more. In 10 years from now, will more people learn about it or less? Likely more. So it's likely going to be much more valuable in 10 years than it is today. And so just when in doubt, zoom out and don't fear the volatility. If the price goes down, be greedy, consume more of it. Consider that a Black Friday sale, right? Or a flash sale. When the price dips, they say buy the dip. So, and don't use leverage, right? Don't go and take a loan, to try to buy Bitcoin. I would say a better strategy is just to dollar cost average in, right? Whatever you can afford, whether it's $5 a day, $5 a week, $25 a month, whatever the case may be, just get some skin in the game, learn how to purchase it. But the most important thing is learn how to move it. Learn how to take self-custody of it. Learn how to purchase it on an exchange, but move it to your personal ownership, like with a nano ledger device. Learn how to take custody of your Bitcoin. So before
nano ledger device, that must be like coming up in the next episode. I was just about to ask you, what you got planned for us next. But honestly, I was thinking too when you were saying about not to leverage yourself to buy Bitcoin, but I also feel like you have to say it's being strategic with your leveraging with Bitcoin, right? Because you were saying if you own Bitcoin, leverage against it when you own it.
right.
Yeah, but that dollar cost averaging, which he talked about in that first episode last month in November, which you should go review. I think that's really important for you guys to understand what he's talking about. Like he gave the broad level, quick overview just now, but yeah, go back and review that first one too. So where he goes into it a little bit more. But yeah, I love that you wrapped us up a little bit, but I really do want to know, you said a nano ledger and are cautioning people to learn how to take, custody of it.
That's
And
right.
I'll be honest with you, I also read an article too about one of the exchanges and someone being sued. So I'm hoping you're planning on touching on some of that kind of stuff. What are the plans for the next couple of weeks about what you're gonna teach us about so we can become even more savvy? And honestly, like I get more and more excited the more you teach me about this. I hope everyone else who's watching feels that way. So what can we entice people with for next week?
Yeah, I think that we can certainly talk about self-custody, because that's important. That's probably the most important thing. Like the reason you want to talk about or educate the audience on how to take possession of their Bitcoin is because I've been a victim of an exchange filing for bankruptcy where I've had, funds on the exchange and I didn't, I thought they were safe there. But that was a hard lesson learned from me that I want to be able to share with everybody else that, you want to take custody of your property, right? You don't want somebody else owning it. You want to own it yourself. And so the way you do that is to get familiar with moving it, get familiar with how do I purchase this and how do I move it into my own custody? Meaning,
are we ready for that? Will that be next week or what? Are we still kind of in the basics or what's the plan? Are we am I jumping the gun? I'm like, I'm excited.
No. We can certainly talk about that. We can certainly talk about FTX, which is the biggest crypto exchange that just went under. There was a lot of fraud there. You know what I mean? And so it's all new news. So I may not have a lot to go in depth about because I'm still learning on the go about everything. Really, everybody's trying to unravel what happened there. But I will share what I am aware of, but we can certainly touch on that. We can certainly touch on crypto ownership. And then at some point, I would like to leave kind of an open, a platform open where people can kind of come on and ask questions because, it's hard to assume that you've covered everything or as much as you can. It's hard to assume that there's areas that people have a lot of questions, to ask. So I think it would be good to just have that open kind of forum, open Q&A where people can ask questions. So yeah,
Yes,
we'll definitely
I've been checking for you guys' question via email too. So don't be shy. Make sure that if you don't feel comfortable leaving a comment, you can always either email me directly at TeMeka@loveinspiredteache.com or hello@loveinspiredteache.com, and we will make sure to incorporate those as we get them. I know for me, this is quite a bit to wrap my mind around, and even getting the time to prep for these, it's like, okay, I don't want to, I've hesitated on reviewing too much because there's a lot of depth of information here, and we want to keep it simple enough. But I think when we do that open forum one, we'll be able to kind of dig into those questions and let people kind of have us revisit, or really let Drew be the expert and share with us, some of the things that we might not be fully grasping. So thank you so much, Drew. Like, this was another amazing evening of like, oh, there's definitely still things to get excited about. If you haven't already started, then you should be pumped to do it now. Like, even like you said, if it's what fits your budget is $5 a week, then that's okay. Just get started, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yep. So dollar cost average in, regardless of the amount, just get some skin in the game, get comfortable with what it is, get comfortable with moving it around from point A to point B. And then, just continue to be open-minded and, willing to learn and take in as much as you can, because this is a rare opportunity. We don't get a transformation of wealth opportunity like this a lot in our lifetime. This will be the only time in our history we'll probably experience it. So we have to be prepared for it on how to take advantage of it.
Exactly. And if you really want to help other people out, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. I didn't do a lot of commercial breaks today because of the technical difficulties, but we appreciate y'all. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thanks again, Drew. And we will see you next week at 7. All right.
Take care.
All right. Thank you. Bye.